All right, welcome back to the channel. Welcome into a new video. Preseason is underway. The transfer window is underway, and Atletico de Madrid have confirmed 2 new signings already. Alejandro Grimaldo is still at the World Cup with Spain, but Morten Yeoman, the Denmark midfielder, has already taken his first training session with Atleti. However, a third signing is well on track, even though it hasn't been announced yet. The I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed. We're just waiting on that official announcement. Lee Kang-jin from PSG and the South Korea national team. I have been a Lee fan for years, so I'm excited about this signing. I've been pretty vocal about it here on the channel, but I always want to know more about this player Atleti are getting, and I know you, the viewers, want to as well. So I have enlisted a genuine expert, Albert Kim from the Bibin Ballers podcast, and I'm going to ask him, I'm going to grill him a little bit, a few questions on Lee and what we can expect from our new signing. Albert, what's going on? How are you?
Jeremy, my man, thanks for having me. You know, it's a good day. I know that a lot of Korean football fans have been very curious about where I강인 is going next in terms of his next challenge. I don't think I can think of a better fit than Atletico de Madrid under Diego Simeone. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. I can't wait to see him back in Spain, where kind of the kid grew up. And I think you should be very excited as an Atleti fan to see some magic from Korea's midfield maestro.
Man, I'm telling you, I have been a Lee fan since he was at Valencia. I really have been. When he was one of the top prospects coming through that academy system, he broke out at Mallorca, was brilliant at Mallorca, and then he moved to PSG, where we're going to talk about how his tenure at PSG went. A lot of trophies, a lot of team success, but individually, he wasn't always a starter under Luis Enrique. So I want to know your thoughts on that. Here is the latest about Lee. Here's what we know about where this transfer is. He's still on vacation, and this transfer will be finalized when he returns. Atletico are expecting him to return for preseason either on Friday or Monday, so the transfer should be announced by then. Albert, here's where I want to start. What do you think in general of Lee's proposed move to Atletico? And is this a fair fee for the player? Reportedly $35 million plus bonuses, taking it up to 40.
Yeah, in terms of the fee, I think it's absolutely fair given kind of inflation and where we're at in the football world. If I'm being honest, he could be even more expensive given the talent that he has, but given the fact that he hasn't played much under Luis Enrique at PSG, I think you could also even make the argument that 35 is maybe a bit of an overpay. Not all the clubs in the world would want to pay that fee, and I think the fact that Simeone and Atletico know who he is kind of factored into the fact that they're paying so much money. I think, honestly, a lot of Korean fans were, at least for me, I had my eyebrows raised when he first moved to PSG from Valencia. It wasn't that PSG wasn't a good club or that Enrique isn't a good coach. I just knew that it'd be hard for him to find playing time in a team just so stacked, right? When you're competing against Vitinha, João Neves, Fabian Ruiz, and then you've got guys like Doué, Barcola, Kvaratskhelia on the wings. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're an Asian footballer, if your name isn't Son Heung-min, then you're not going to start against the likes of those guys. So last few years for him, on a personal note, I think have certainly been disappointing just because he hasn't been able to play a lot. And then we saw the way he played against Czechia in that first World Cup group stage match and just absolutely balling out. Everyone on the internet was going, who is this guy? Well, Jeremy and I knew who he was. We just knew that Enrique was stashing him in his weaponry that he has in his basement in Paris. So in terms of the fee, very fair, I think, and I think he's going to absolutely be a starter for Atletico, and I think Simeone is probably salivating right now to get his hands back on the Korean-Spanish position.
There's a lot of, not consternation isn't the word I want to use, but there's a lot of intrigue and maybe some anxiety, not just around Lee as a player and who he is, but because of the role that he might be asked to fill, that of Antoine Griezmann, one of the most legendary players ever to play for Atletico. But we're going to get to that. In a vacuum, though, and I've been pretty vocal about this on the channel. I really like this player. His performance during the World Cup only enhanced how much I want him at the club and how fundamental and necessary I think his signing is. His stats at PSG, Albert, 123 appearances, 68 starts, 16 goals, 16 assists. He won 12 trophies in Paris, including 3 league titles, 2 Champions League titles the last 2 seasons. How would you describe his time at PSG? He never seemed to win a major role under Luis Enrique, and I guess we can fold that into a larger debate about what his best role actually is.
Yeah, I mean, the goals per game and the numbers aren't amazing if you're comparing it to another superstar like Son Heung-min, right? Or guys like Messi or Ronaldo. But I think the problem with I강인 in his game is the fact that he's always been a midfield creator. It's just always his finishing has kind of been one of the problems that he's had. I like to joke with the guys on our Peeping Ballers channel that if I강인 could actually, become a goal-scoring machine, he would be the Korean Messi. In terms of what he did at PSG, he wasn't always played as a central attacking midfielder, which I think is his best position. A lot of times Enrique would sub him in, I think even as a right winger or a left winger. This is the same issues he's been having with the Korean national team, where he's being played out wide instead of in the middle. So he's been used as a Swiss Army knife backup midfielder / attacker. I don't think he's been terrible when he's come on. I think one of his best performances was in that Super Cup against Tottenham when he scored the goal to claw them back into that game. And then I believe he buried his penalty in the shootout. So when you give him chances, he certainly is able to deliver. The problem is he just hasn't been utilized properly by Enrique or by Jurgen Klinsmann and Hong Young-bo on the Korean national team. So now that he's 25, I really think that, I don't want to say this is his last chance to become, the star that we all know he is. It's just maybe finally time for a manager who knows him to utilize him properly. And I really hope that Diego Simeone does and uses him in the middle of the field, because the thing about his game, though, is he's not a very fast player. He's not a burner. He's someone who's much better getting lost in the middle, deking on guys and kind of, playing in those in between the lines. So if he plays in the middle, I wouldn't be too worried. But if Simeone does something crazy and starts playing him as a secondary striker or plays him out wide, then that's when I would start getting worried about his stats.
Yeah, because I don't see him as a winger either. I mean, at the World Cup, he was playing in, South Korea had such an interesting formation, something like a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1.
Stupid back three, and he was playing as a right inside forward, whatever that is, And
I do want to ask you what on earth is going on with the national team. I know you guys did a video on it last week, but if you could summarize really quick.
And that's why, honestly, a lot of us were not surprised at the fact that we crashed out so early at the World Cup. And obviously, it affects our best players. I강인, besides the first game against Czechia, didn't have a great World Cup. I don't think he was that great against Mexico or South Africa. So, as you can see, long story short, a fish rots from the head down, and our fish has been rotting for a long, long time.
Yeah. That game against Czechia, though, we'll always have that.
False flag operation, buddy. Smoke show.
Well, especially his performance in that game. And I think that particular game, Albert, it typified what he is as a player: that low center of gravity, the dribbling, the agility, the passing accuracy. And we can fold this in as well to a larger debate about who exactly he's coming in to replace or supplant even. I pulled up this comparison from Scout Lab comparing Yi with Griezmann, and we can see they're not really the same player at all. Yi is better with ball progression, a stronger dribbler, stronger ball carrier. The passing accuracy is almost off the charts, but in terms of the final product, in terms of generating their own chances, their own opportunities, the shot volume for Griezmann is kind of in a different stratosphere. This isn't really who Yi is as a player. He's more of a conductor. He's someone between the lines who's going to progress the play and set up your goal scorers. In this case, it'll be Ademola Lookman, Julian Alvarez if he stays, maybe another 9 if Atleti sign one. He's going to make those players better.
Yeah, the thing about Griezmann and what I loved about him is that, yes, he was a player who played in the middle, but his goal scoring rate was ridiculous, especially for France. I remember Euro 2016, I think he was the top scorer in that tournament. Kangin is never going to be a top scorer in a tournament, but like you say, and like you can see from this graphic right here, he absolutely moves the ball a lot better than Griezmann. It's just going to be about finding a striker, like you said, that can finish the chances he puts up. The one thing that I do love about him playing out wide on the right wing is that he kind of likes to invert and cut in. So as a left footer, he kind of goes inside and then he kind of picks out a little, dime cherry pass across the top that a striker can head down. So I think if Atleti can get a bigger striker that can hit the ball down, I know you had somebody like that in Sorloth, but if you get somebody even better, I think you could really make some magic with him. Not necessarily Alvarez, because I know Alvarez isn't really a typical number 9, but if you get somebody a little bigger to knock down those balls Kangin's going to feed, this could be a really, really good signing. But yeah, fans shouldn't expect him to have the same goal scoring rate as Griezmann, but he does other things a little better, like passing. So it's a bit of a give and take,
They could occupy just a similar position or a similar role on the pitch. Just a left footer inverting from the right, and Atleti have a notable absence of left-footed talent in the team, especially with Griezmann leaving. I think it's more likely that Yi is going to be a Thiago Almada replacement. You can see these graphics are more aligned, and even still, Yi is an improvement, an upgrade in terms of passing ability, ball progression. You can even see some similarities, some overlap with Alex Baeta, who I think is going to be playing on the opposite flank on the left-hand side. Between these two players plus Lookman, I think Atleti Simeone will hope to replicate what they're going to miss with Griezmann. And Lookman, you have the goal scoring, playing as a secondary forward, Bayern on the left, inverting toward the middle, and then Yi doing the same thing on the other side. So it'll be interesting. You're basically asking three players to replace Griezmann, which kind of sums up how important Griezmann was for so many years here.
Yeah, and I guess the question I would ask for you, Jeremy, I know Simeone has always kind of gone back and forth between his traditional defensive, park the bus style, and then other seasons I know he's actually had Atleti play a little more adventurously, which does not fit the Simeone stereotype. I'm asking you then, if Kangin comes into the squad and assuming he starts, do you think he goes back to the sit back and hit on the counter? Or given that Kangin likes to play on the ball, do you think he's going to ask this team to be a little more adventurous this coming season, with or without Alvarez?
I feel like it's going to be the latter. I think the players that Atleti are signing this summer, Grimaldo is nominally a left back, but he can play as a wing back. He can play as an attacking midfielder as well. That left side with Baena, Grimaldo, and Lookman could be very good. And you've also signed Morten Ullmann, who is very valuable out of possession, but also progresses the ball really well in possession. Yeomann's role will be really interesting and could be even more instructive than what Simeone does with Grimaldo and with Yi. But I do think there's going to be more of an emphasis on being more adventurous, on being more not ambitious, because Simeone has shown over the years that he's extremely adaptable based on formation and approach. There are certain things about the mentality and the DNA of Cholismo that are just never ever going to change, for better and for worse. But Simeone has shown his adaptability and his willingness to shed some of that pragmatism over the years and adapt to the players in his squad. I think this will be no different. I mean, I've been saying I'm a fan of this signing. I'm a fan of all three signings that Atleti have made this summer, although this one isn't finalized yet. And I think they're all pretty clearly pointing toward Atleti playing a bit more in possession and showing a bit more domination on the ball, especially in La Liga. I wanted to ask you, Albert, about, we've talked about Lee's strengths. What are some of his weaknesses? Because in the Simeone team, we mentioned how this Atleti side might play with these new signings. Something that's never negotiable in a Simeone team is the effort, the work rate, out of possession. Are these some of Lee's weaknesses? Are they things that he can refine under Simeone?
You know what? His work rate, out of possession, and tracking back was a weakness until he got to Mallorca and played under the famous Javier Aguirre.
Played under Aguirre, yeah.
And that man basically changed the kid for forever, I think, as a player. Paulo Bento, our former coach of Korea, basically said, I wasn't going to take Igang into the World Cup in 2022 until I saw his performances at Mallorca, and I saw that Aguirre turned him into a two-way player. The one great thing about Kangin is if you lose possession, he's going to track back like a demon, doing his best to harass the opposing player and then get the ball and launch a sweet pass upfield. I don't think he has issues in terms of, his defensive work rate, but in terms of weaknesses, I would say definitely his finishing, like I've said before. For as good of a shot as he has, there are times when I watch him, in the opponent's box and he just blazes the ball like way over the bar, and I'm just like, bro, like really? Like all that, and you just can't finish. But again, I think it's a give and take again with guys who are so creative. I think some, creative midfielders always aren't the best finishers, and I think that's just a part of Kangin's game that we're going to have to accept. The one good thing about it is he could absolutely hit, long shots from outside the box. He's an excellent direct free kick taker. In fact, I think he'll probably be the first choice free kick taker for Atleti once he gets to the team. In terms of other weaknesses, he's bulked up, but obviously he's not the tallest guy. He's about 172, 173 centimeters. I think if you play him in the middle of the park, you're always going to have a bigger number 6 or an 8 next to him to help him clean up some of the messes in the box. So yeah, again, it's a typical, Cam, I think. I always like to call him the Korean version of a Mesut Ozil or Luka Modric. And those guys were always like the most creative players. And some of them, sometimes they would track back, guys like Modric. But again, he's going to need someone bigger just to help him out, because at that size, there are times when he can wear down and especially get kicked pretty hard. I know he hasn't really been an injury-prone player, but at times he's had some ankle issues for PSG. So that's definitely something to watch out, is the durability and the fact that he's not the biggest guy.
It is interesting to hear and read some of the things I've read about Yi out of possession, because he did work under Aguirre, and Aguirre is one of the best defensive coaches around. And Luis Enrique has prized teamwork and work ethic and the tactical, I guess, cohesion since he's become PSG coach, and he was right there with him when he joined in 2023. So I don't really see that as being a significant issue under Simeone, and he will get a chance to prove himself early. I think his direct competition for the role he's going to play is Giuliano Simeone. Giuliano is a very different type of player, way more direct, way more vertical. I could see Giuliano playing as more of a forward or a center forward this season, just based on his traits versus Yee's and trying to find a way to put them both in lineup, since Giuliano is also an important player here. But it is interesting to hear you say that. And watching him during the World Cup, I did notice out of possession, he's not a net negative. And I think that will be very important under Simeone.
No, I don't think Simeone would have signed him had his defensive game been so poor, because one thing we know about Cholo is that you have to track back. So.
That is never going to change, man. So he has undergone a medical. One of Atleti's doctors flew to South Korea. I wanted to talk to you about the marketing aspect of this signing and how popular he is in South Korea. His nickname is the Golden Boy, isn't it?
Star Boy, more like
Star Boy.
But I guess for a little background perspective, the Korean public has known about I강인 since he was basically 5-6 years old, when he was a little kid. He appeared on a Korean reality show called Shutdori, which follows like young football prodigies as they age. By the time he was on TV, he was already better than all the little kids with that sweet left foot. He was actually coached by Yoo Sang-chul, who was a legendary 2002 player for South Korea. And then he got noticed by Valencia and moved to Spain, I think, around the age of 10. So the kid is actually basically Korean Spanish. He speaks Spanish better than he does Korean. And in terms of marketing, now that he's become a grown, 25-year-old man, he's probably like a very cute, good-looking lad. The ladies love him. I wouldn't say in terms of marketing he's as big as So Dong-min, but he's right there. Whenever I walk on the streets in Seoul, I see E's face for ads like cell phones or even like chicken at times. So I think once So Dong-min gets older and retires, I강인 is definitely going to be the next big Korean star. And you're going to see a lot of Korean fans buy Atleti kits. I also believe that the Atleti kits, some of them are already sold out in South Korea. Then again, we do have a lack of kits over there. It's something I've always been annoyed about. Nike and Adidas need to do a better job of stocking our stores. But in terms of marketing, man, you're going to see a lot of Korean tourists come to the stadium, the Wanda over there, to watch the games. They travel very well. Korean tourists were already, popular for going to Mallorca to watch I강인 play when he was there. And I think that Madrid's an even better place to vacation than Mallorca in some aspects, because it's the history and the stuff to do. So this is going to be massive for Atleti. And one more thing I can say is that even when he was at PSG and wasn't playing that much, PSG opened up like a pop-up bakery cafe in one of the fancy neighborhoods in Seoul. I can only imagine what they're going to do once I강인 becomes a starter at Atleti. And I think you guys should be really excited for the new fans that are about to join your fan base.
Becoming a starter for one of the 10 to 15 biggest clubs in the world. That'll help with marketing. I know for a fact that entering and I guess dominating, for lack of a better word, the Asian market has been an Atleti priority for years. I mean, Atleti tried to sign Yi 3 years ago when he was at Mallorca, but PSG got it ahead of Atleti and ended up signing him that summer. This has always been a priority for Miguel Angel Gil, the CEO, and with Mateo Alemany, who worked with him at Valencia, now has joined the club. That, I guess, made the signing easier to facilitate. And for Apollo Sports Capital, Atleti's new majority shareholders, the commercial growth and the commercial potential. I know that when BTS had a concert at the Metropolitano a couple of weeks ago, one of their members, Suga, I think, one of their members debuted the home shirt unofficially for this coming season. Very smart marketing move. Very, very well done by the club. So yeah, the commercial potential for this is off the scales, and we can't discount that. But I want to caution to our viewers that this signing is not being made just because of the marketing potential, just because of the commercial potential. This guy is really good. He's a really good player, even though he just didn't always get that opportunity to shine at PSG, a big club that is just stacked with talent all throughout. And it's not necessarily his fault.
Yeah, no, it's not his fault. And I think that the fear that I had, like I said before, was he would get lost among all the toys that Enrique has at PSG.
Yeah.
Am I glad that he won all those trophies? Yeah, he won 2 Champions Leagues, albeit he didn't play much. But now this is really his time to step up, because now he's 25. I mean, where does all the time go?
This is his time.
Yeah, the next World Cup, he's going to be 29. And that's crazy, because Koreans have known him as a little kid, basically. So if he doesn't do well at Atleti, then his career in Europe will be in big question, I guess you could say. But I don't want to be too optimistic, but this is as close to a slam dunk as you can get in terms of your football DNA, the fit, the cultural fit for him going back to Spain. I'm just really excited to see what he can do. And I'm not an Atleti fan. I wasn't before, but I might even pick up one of those kits because seeing his name on that jersey does look pretty nice. I can't lie.
The adaptation period isn't going to be so daunting either because he's played in Spain most of his life. So that's another point in his favor. What else can you tell us about Albert? Anything else that we didn't cover that you think our viewers got to know about him?
Yeah, and in terms of his personality, he's not similar to a lot of typical Koreans who go abroad. I think the stereotype of Korean players is that they're very humble, quiet. They put their head down and just kind of grind. I강인 is a grinder, but he's also got a bit of a fire and a temper to him when he gets upset. In that game against Mexico, he was mouthing off with some of the Mexican players who were trying to get into his face. Like I said, this is not a typical Korean. He's a Korean Spaniard who grew up with that Spanish DNA. He's going to get in the faces of guys when they try to get physical with them. And I think that he really fits that Atletico fighting DNA that Simeone loves. When you're playing a game 90, 80 minutes into a Champions League knockout match, you need somebody to kind of, play along with the dark arts that some of the other teams employ. And I think I강인 is fits that mold very well. And I think, as the kids say, he's got that dog in him. And I think that Atleti fans should realize this isn't, the same player as Son Heung-min, not even close. There's different styles, different personalities, and the kid's got a lot of fire, and I think he's hungry to show what he can do. So I really think they should be excited because he has a point to prove, especially because it's July right now. The Asian Cup is going to be in January. That's the one trophy Korea can really win, even though our national team isn't in a great state right now. So hopefully, he takes the opportunity he gets in Spain to ball out and then bring that with us to Saudi Arabia and hopefully win us our first trophy since 1960. It's been a while.
It's been that long. That is another interesting element to this is the Asian Cup in the middle of the season. Atleti will lose him for all of January. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to that.
Yeah, and again, it depends on how far Korea goes, right? If we go to the semis, the final, it's practically the whole month. If it's a little before that, it's about 2-3 weeks. So, I guess Korea is still expected to make it at least to the semis, even if, our national team is down bad at the moment. I know it's not ideal for Atleti fans to lose one of their best players in that time of the season, but I think that if he does well at the Asian Cup, he's going to become a national hero in Korea. And if that happens, his confidence just goes up and up, and he's ready for the spring, which is when Atleti really, what they really care about, right? I mean, Atletico wants to win something, whether it's La Liga or going deep in the Champions League. So I think to have your best players motivated and hopefully healthy is going to be a good thing. And it's only every 4 years. Again, he's going to be there for the other winters as well. So I just hope that, Atleti fans can be patient with the fact that he's going to be gone for a little bit, but it means a lot to the player and to the country.
Yeah, I would never, if I were in that position, I would never want anyone to get in the way of that opportunity. As you said, it's the first opportunity potentially at a trophy in 67 years. That means something.
Absolutely. And hopefully if he does well, I think, we'll see more Korean players going to Spain. I know we have one at Girona right now, Kim Min-soo, who's a winger/forward doing pretty okay. So I think Atleti fans should keep in mind, always long-term perspective, right? No matter what happens with I강인, if he does well, you could see a pipeline of Koreans coming to Spain because most of our guys have mostly going to Germany, the Netherlands. But if they go to Spain, get that Spanish DNA, that tiki-taka passing, those fundamentals. It'll be great not just for Korea, but for Atleti and La Liga in general.
Albert of the Bibin Ballers podcast, thank you again for your time and your insight. Really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.